guys. I wanted to, sorry about that. I wanted to talk with you guys about John Matza, who was fired from Parler, the alternative to Twitter app. He was terminated last night, reports first came out about it last night, so John Matza, who is he's only like 27. He co-founded Parler, so and this was like 3 years ago. So new company, very young CEO, no longer part of Parler. Now, what happened here? Why is that? Well, according to Matza himself, he said he was a strong advocate of free speech and product stability, but in his engagements with the head of the board, this Rebecca Mercer, who is apparently in control of the board, she and him had a disagreement about the direction of the company. And it's not just her. Rebecca Mercer and co-founder Dylan Bongino, both of them. So the co-founder and the head of the head chairman person, whatever, Rebecca Mercer. They both. Well, she decided, because she was pretty much it was her decision ultimately, but Dan Bongino, he kind of backs up her side of the argument, because from what what John Matza had to say about it was that he wanted to get the company back online pronto, and apparently his disagreement was with Mercer was in the what level of moderation is necessary going forward after the riots on Capitol Hill on January 6th. It sounded like Matza was going to try to make some concessions when it came to what was allowed on his platform, specifically right-wing groups and those who, far-right groups and conspiracy theories like this QAnon whatever. Still don't feel like I completely understand what QAnon is, but Matza said that he didn't want it on his platform anymore, and he was moving more in the direction of doing light censorship and going more in that direction, although still wanting to keep it as a free speech alternative. He wanted to he wanted to get back into. He felt that to get back online and to run a stable company, it was going to be necessary to make some concessions. The co-founder and Rebecca Mercer, who's in charge of the board, they both disagreed. So he got canned, and yeah. So Matza also said that they were only days away from getting the platform back online. That doesn't seem like the biggest priority for the board or the co-founder. And it sounds like they were sticking to their guns and preferring to have a dead platform than a platform that makes concessions. And it's unclear Rebecca Mercer didn't make a statement, and Dan Bogino didn't make a statement regarding. He made a statement about the CEO, but he didn't make a statement regarding the future of the company. Other than that, it's going to remain they're going to remain as pure to their free speech values as possible, which I think is great. It would just be nice if they can get this company back on track. So a little bit about Rebecca Mercer. The Mercer family in general is pretty fascinating. So it's important to understand that Parler, they may be the underdog here. They may be victims to. You can call them victims to what's going on with Twitter and Facebook and Apple and Google. The purge on both sides. The we're not going. From Amazon and from Amazon not letting. Well, okay. Let me backtrack. So it's not. You've got Google and Apple squeezing them out on one end through their virtual stores by not allowing them onto their virtual stores for it to be downloaded, and then of course you've got Amazon on the other end who won't sell server space and won't host the Parler app either. So they're getting squeezed on both sides. So I would say, it's easy to see them as a victim or depict them as a victim from that perspective, but I think it's worth understanding that the Mercer family has ultimate control over the direction of this company and who's going to ultimately be its CEO, or if the company even has a pulse going forward. And it's important to look into them ever so slightly. For one thing, the Mercers were the ones who introduced Steve Bannon to Trump, apparently. So the Mercers you could argue that they indirectly created Donald Trump as a candidate and a president, because where would Donald Trump have been without Steve Bannon in 2016? I really don't think Trump would have been president without Steve Bannon. And he would have been president, and he would have never gotten to the presidency without Steve Bannon. He could have maintained the presidency with Steve Bannon. Trump made a big mistake not keeping him on, because Steve Bannon understood things pretty clear. I mean, he was able to. He was the puppet master. So, in addition to that, you've got Robert Mercer, which is her father. Rebecca Mercer's father is Robert Mercer. He is a principal investor in Cambridge Analytica, the British organization that was involved in election meddling, but nobody talked about it because they're not a foreign adversary. It's England. He had a key role in Brexit and Trump 2016. His campaign in general. I guess with funding specifically for both movements, and he owns a stake and Robert Mercer used to own a stake in Breitbart and has since sold that or handed it off to his children. So the Mercers are a clearly pretty influential, powerful family with their hands in on every rung of the ladder when it comes to what goes on in Republican politics. They're clearly very influential. So, but they're not your. But I think it's important to understand. I wouldn't call them your traditional Republican. They're not your George Bush Republican. George Bush didn't give a rat's ass about free speech, so your standard Republican doesn't care much more about free speech than than the Democrats. I mean, the Republicans were the ones who got, George Bush got the Patriot Act pushed through. The Patriot Act was pushed through by the Democrats or by the Republicans. So to say that all Republicans are for free speech is ridiculous. Now, most of the free speech anti-free speech arguments are coming from the left, but there's a decent amount coming from the right as well. Traditionally, I would say most censorship was coming from the right, but the kind of civil war between the Republican Party, this Mercer family is clearly on the side of Trump, and they're largely responsible for Trump, both donating to his campaign and by introducing him to the man who made his campaign viable. So, in conclusion, it seems like the Mercer family and by extension Parler are going to be deeply committed to this, to being a free speech version of Twitter or Facebook, and that I'll accept that at face value and be happy about that at face value. I'm an advocate of free speech in any form, and I'll chalk this up as a win for free speech if it means Parler gets back online and does what it's supposed to do. And it just seems like such a change from just a few weeks ago, because this John Matza, the CEO, he sang a different tune a few weeks ago, and how he seems to have changed his mind, and it might have cost him his job as the CEO of his company. But if the company is even viable at this point, it's unclear. We'll see what happens, but the Mercer family, or Rebecca Mercer and the other co-founder, they seem to be doubling down on what they already stand for, even if the company dies with it. Maybe it won't, but we'll see. All right, thank you guys.